The great hall of the Galactic Union was silent. The silence was heavy, almost painful. 1,000 alien eyes stared at the center platform where a single human stood. He was tall, dressed in a dark suit, and carried himself with calm confidence. He was Earth's first diplomat to the stars. His name was Jonathan Hale. For months, he had spoken for humanity. For months, he had built respect and peace with races far older and stronger than Earth. But tonight, something was different. The air carried danger. The alien envoys whispered in their strange tongues. Their claws clicked against the polished floor. Their eyes glowed with suspicion and hunger. Everyone knew why. Not all species wanted humans in the Union. To them, humans were too young, too reckless, too unpredictable. And in that room, among the shadows, enemies had already chosen what they would do. Jonathan lifted his hand, about to speak, but then it happened. A sudden flash of light tore across the chamber. A sound like thunder shook the walls. A weapon had been fired. The beam cut through the air, moving faster than thought, straight toward the human diplomat. Gasps echoed. Some aliens shrieked. Some ducked for cover. Others only watched with cold eyes, waiting for the human to fall. But Jonathan Hale did not fall. The beam struck a shield, invisible until the moment of impact. A shimmer of blue light appeared around his chest, scattering the deadly energy into harmless sparks. His face did not change. His eyes remained calm. And then he smiled. That smile froze the entire hall. It was not the smile of relief, not the smile of a man who had narrowly escaped death. It was the smile of someone who knew something the rest did not, a smile that carried danger in the high seats. The alien who had fired the shot was seized by guards. Its body trembled, not with fear of capture, but with fear of what that smile meant. The Union Council began shouting, voices in 100 tongues rising like a storm. Jonathan finally spoke. His voice was steady, low, but it carried across the chamber. An attack on one of us, he said, is an attack on all of us. Simple. Words. Words that sounded like peace. But those who knew humans, truly knew them, felt the weight beneath, far away on Earth. The signal of the attack was already received. Screens across command centers lit up. Military officers, scientists, leaders, and ordinary people saw the footage of their diplomat being targeted. They saw the smile, and they understood. That smile was not for the Union, it was for humanity. The council tried to calm the room. Chaos spread. Some envoys shouted that the humans should be removed, that humanity was too dangerous. Others demanded punishment for the attacker. But in every shadow, one truth grew louder. Humans would not forgive this. Jonathan Hale stepped down from the platform. He walked slowly, calmly, as if nothing had happened. His guards closed around him, but he did not look at them. He did not look at the attacker. He only looked ahead. That same strange smile still touched his lips, and the stars above Earth, fleets began to move. Ships that had rested in silent orbit came alive. Engines roared, weapons charged, spread faster than light through secret human networks. One sentence repeated everywhere. They struck our diplomat. And every time the message was read, the answer came back, simple and final. Then we will answer. The assassin had thought the attack would make humans retreat, make them look weak in front of the galaxy. Instead, it had unlocked something. The stars had not yet seen. Humanity was not the strongest race, not the oldest, not the most advanced. But they were the most dangerous when threatened. Because when humans smiled like that, it meant war. The alien who had fired the shot was dragged away, its many eyes wide with dread. It tried to speak, to explain, but no one listened. Even its own allies pulled away from it. They had seen the human's face, they had seen the smile, and they knew. Far beyond, on the edge of human space, soldiers strapped into armor, pilots, ran their hands across cold steel controls. Families whispered quiet prayers while watching the night sky, not because they feared for themselves, but because they knew what was coming. Jonathan Hale stepped into his ship. Before the door closed, a reporter shouted, "Sir, what will Earth do now?" The human diplomat turned, his eyes calm, his smile colder than steel. "We asked for peace," he said. "But if peace is refused, then humanity will be remembered." In war, the ship lifted, engines shaking the platform, carrying him back to Earth. In the hall, silence fell once more. No one dared to move, no one dared to speak. For every envoy in that chamber now carried the same thought. The stars had just made their first mistake, and humanity had just begun to wake. The message of the attack spread across the galaxy faster than light. In hidden corners of space, races gathered in secret to talk. Some whispered that the human would return to Earth with anger in his heart. Others believed humans would do nothing, that they were still too young, too weak to fight the ancient powers of the stars. But deep inside Earth's orbit, the truth was already moving. Massive stations came alive. Steel giants of war, silent for years, powered up with a hum that shook the void. Engines roared awake, weapons glowed, and crews rushed into position. The human fleet was not the biggest, but every soldier carried something the galaxy did not understand in yielding will. Jonathan Hale, the diplomat, returned to Earth. His ship landed in the capital city, where crowds had already filled the streets. They had seen the attack. They had seen his smile. The people shouted his name, their voices rising like thunder. But Jonathan did not stop for celebration. He walked into the command center, where generals and leaders waited. The room fell silent as he entered. No one asked him if he was unharmed. They could see he was alive. What they wanted was his decision. Jonathan looked at the screens showing alien worlds, enemy fleets, and the face of the assassin. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with fire. "They attacked Earth," he said. "Not me, not a man. Earth, they declared war, even if they did not use the word." A general leaned forward. "Do you want retaliation, sir?" Jonathan did not answer at once. He let the silence stretch, the weight of it pressing on everyone's chest. Then he spoke again. "Retaliation? No, humanity does not retaliate. Humanity answers. And when we answer, the stars will remember." The room stirred. Officers nodded. Some smiled grimly. The order was unspoken, yet everyone felt it. Across the galaxy, other races began to panic. They had heard stories of humans, of their strange history, a species that had fought each other for thousands of years yet survived, a species that had turned every war into a lesson, every loss into strength, a species that smiled in the face of death. Now those stories no longer felt like legends. In the Galactic Union Hall, the council gathered again. The assassin's allies begged for protection, claiming the attack had been a mistake. But the older races did not listen. They remembered the human's smile. They remembered the words. "An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us." The Union debated, but their voices were filled with fear. Some demanded humans be expelled before they grew too dangerous. Others whispered that it was already too late. Meanwhile, in the shadows of space, the true enemy watched. The species that had sent the assassin was called the Dravari. They were hunters, known for killing rivals before they grew powerful. They thought humanity was easy prey, a young race with no true strength. The attack was meant to scare humans, to keep them in their place. But the Dravari had not expected the smile. Their spies reported that fleets were moving, factories working day and night, and humans across the planet preparing as one. The Dravari leaders grew nervous. They had hunted many species before, but never one that looked at death and grinned. Back on Earth, Jonathan stood before the leaders of humanity. The chamber was filled with soldiers, scientists, and civilians, all waiting for his command. He raised his hand and the room grew silent. "They believe we are weak," he said. "They believe fear will control us. But they do not understand who we are. Humanity does not bend. Humanity does not break. When we are attacked, we rise. When one of us is struck, all of us stand together. This is not the end of peace, it is the beginning of a storm. The chamber erupted with voices, but one truth cut through all the noise. Humanity had chosen. In the darkness of space, fleets formed into lines, soldiers strapped into exosuits, their armor shining like steel shadows. Pilots slid into cockpits, their hands steady on the controls. Every screen carried the same order: stand ready. The stars shook. Now we move. And still, Jonathan Hale's smile lingered in the memory of every alien who had seen it. The Dravari thought they had killed peace. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. A sleeping giant had opened its eyes, and humanity was rising. The stars above Earth were no longer calm. Human fleets had left orbit, spreading like shadows across the void. Battleships and carriers moved in silence, their lights dimmed, their weapons armed. No announcement was made. No grand speech declared war. Humanity did not shout. Humanity prepared. The Dravari, the species behind the attack, began to feel the pressure. Their spies reported strange movements, convoys of supply ships leaving Earth, hidden bases powering up, colonies across the solar system arming themselves. But what frightened them most was the silence. Humans were not sending threats. They were not making demands. They were waiting, watching, smiling. In the Dravari High Council, voices clashed. Some demanded a full strike before humans grew too strong, others urged caution. "We thought them weak," one elder said, "but weakness does not smile at death." Back on Earth, Jonathan Hale sat in a darkened command room. Around him, officers worked in silence, their eyes fixed on glowing maps of the galaxy. The Diplomat was no longer only a voice of peace. He had become something else. Symbol. His near assassination had turned him into the living banner of humanity's will. A young officer asked him quietly, "Sir, will the Union stand with us?" Jonathan's eyes never left the map. "They will not choose us, not yet. They will. Wait to see if we survive. That is how the old races act. But it does not matter. Humanity has chosen itself." The officer hesitated, then nodded. Everyone in the room understood. They were alone, but they were united. In the deep reaches of space, the first test came. A small human convoy carrying supplies to a forward base was ambushed by Dravari raiders. The Dravari ships were larger, stronger, more advanced. They expected an easy slaughter. But the humans fought differently. The convoy did not scatter. It did not run. Instead, it turned as one and attacked. Civilian freighters revealed hidden cannons. Small escorts dived straight into enemy fire, weaving through beams of death, striking with brutal precision. The battle was short, bloody, and shocking. When it ended, the raiders were destroyed. Not one human ship escaped without damage, but not one human ship was lost. The survivors broadcast a single message into the void: "We are coming." The message spread. Across the galaxy, races listened. Some laughed nervously, calling it human arrogance. Others fell silent, remembering the smile of the Diplomat. And in the Dravari homeworld, fear began to grow. The Dravari leader demanded answers. Why did the humans not break? Why did they not run? No one could answer. No one understood. The Dravari had fought many enemies, but never one that welcomed battle as if it were a challenge. Jonathan Hale heard of the convoys. Victory. He allowed himself a small smile, the same smile that had terrified the Union chamber. But his voice remained steady when he spoke to the leaders of Earth. "This is only the beginning," he said. "They believe they can frighten us with power, but they have given us unity instead. They gave us no choice but to stand as one. Factories worked day and night. Colonies sent supplies without being asked. Even old enemies on Earth set aside their grudges. Humanity was no longer many nations. It was one force. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, other young races watched with wide eyes. They had suffered under the older powers, living in fear of the strong.
They saw humans rise, and something stirred inside them, hope. But the Dravari did not see hope.
They saw danger. A second strike was ordered. A fleet 10 times larger than the first moved toward the edge of human space. It was meant to crush any resistance, to send a message of dominance. When the fleet arrived, They found humans waiting. Smaller ships, fewer in number, but spread like hunters in the dark. The battle began without warning. Explosions lit the void, metal screamed, and fire rained across the stars. The Dravari expected a quick victory. Instead, they met something. They had never faced before humans who fought not for survival, but for vengeance. Every time a human ship was hit, another charged forward, fearless, relentless. Every loss was met with fury. Every strike was answered with double force. The Dravari were forced to retreat. For the first time in their history, they turned away from prey. And across the galaxy, the message spread again. The words were simple. But they shook every throne and council. Humanity does not run. Jonathan Hale stood before his people once more. His voice was calm, steady, carrying through every broadcast. They thought the attack would end us. But they were wrong. They have awakened something greater than they can imagine. This war is no longer about survival. It is about memory. Stars will remember what happens next. Somewhere, deep in the heart of space, the Dravari leaders realized their mistake was greater than they had feared, because humanity had not only survived the attack, humanity had declared its place. Among the stars, the Dravari were restless. Their council chambers shook with angry voices, their claws scraping against stone tables, their many eyes glowing with fear and rage. Twice now, they had struck at humans. Twice, they had failed. This had never happened before. Prey was supposed to run. Prey was supposed to hide. But humans had done neither. Instead, they smiled. Reports arrived with every passing hour. Fleets gathering around Earth, factories doubling their output, colonies swearing loyalty with no hesitation. The humans were not breaking apart under pressure. They were becoming sharper, stronger, harder. The Dravari leader slammed his claws onto the table. We must crush them now, before they grow beyond. Control, before their fire spreads. But even as the order was spoken, fear remained in the chamber. The Dravari had seen something they could not understand. The humans had bled, but they did not retreat. Something worse of their young species were watching. On a small world far from the Union, the Yalathi people sat before their screens. They had once begged the Union for help, only to be ignored when raiders destroyed their homes. But now they watched humans fight, and they whispered to one another, "If humans can resist, why not us?" In another corner of the stars, the fragile Varan tribes lifted their heads for the first time in generations. They had always hidden from the strong. But the image of Jonathan Hale's smile reached even them. They replayed his words, an attack. On one of us is an attack on all of us. And they wondered, could humans mean those words for more than just themselves? Back on Earth, preparations deepened.
Yes.
Massive shipyards in orbit forged new battleships. Moon bases became fortresses. Mars, lit up with military camps, and in the dark of space, hidden fleets trained in silence. Jonathan Hale stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Lights stretched to the horizon, and the voices of the people below rose like a storm. They wanted revenge. They wanted justice. But Jonathan's face was calm. He carried the same strange smile, the one that had become the symbol of Earth's. Rezel approached him. "Sir, the Union debates what to do. Some call for our removal. Some demand our punishment. But a few whispered that they want to stand with us." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "The old powers are afraid. They do not move unless pushed. If they will not choose, then we will show them a choice." That night, humanity acted. A fleet slipped into Dravari territory, not to destroy, but to send a message. They targeted a military outpost on the edge of Dravari space. No civilians, no colonies. Only warriors. The battle was swift and brutal. Human ships struck with precision, disabling defenses, cutting supply lines, and leaving the Dravari base burning in silence. And then, before vanishing into the void, the humans left a message behind. It was Jonathan. HalesVoice.com. Steady. Deadly. You struck at peace. We strike at your strength. This is your warning. The next will not be so kind. The galaxy trembled. The Dravari screamed for vengeance, calling humans reckless, dangerous, mad. But the younger races whispered a different word: hope. For the first time, someone had stood against the hunters. Someone had shown that even the strong could bleed. The Union Council argued for days. Some feared humanity would ignite chaos across the stars. Others feared something greater, that humanity might inspire rebellion. Meanwhile, Jonathan Hale addressed his people. His voice carried not just across Earth, but across colonies and outposts, echoing in every home. "They tried to silence us," he said. "They tried to make us bow, but we do not bow. Humanity was born in struggle, raised in fire, and shaped by storms. We are not the oldest race. We're not the strongest. But when we stand together, we are unbreakable." His words reached beyond human ears. Across distant worlds, the oppressed listened. The forgotten listened, and they felt something awakened. The Dravari did not see this awakening. They saw only a threat that must be crushed. A great fleet gathered, larger than anything humans had yet faced. Their ships darkened the stars. Their weapons burned with power. They came for humanity's borders, determined to end this rising fire before it spread too far. But what they did not know was this: humanity was not standing alone anymore. At the edge of the battlefield, as human fleets formed their lines, strange signals appeared. New ships, small and fragile, emerged from the void. Not human ships, Yalathi ships, Varan ships. Others too small and weak to matter until now. They had come, not because of treaties, not because of promises. They had come because humanity's smile had shown them the way. Jonathan Hale watched from his command ship. The sight of the small fleets joining made his smile widen, colder than steel. He turned to his officers. "Do you see?" he said. "Stars thought they could frighten us, but now the stars themselves rise beside us. This is no longer a war of survival. This is the beginning of something greater. The battle was about to begin." The Dravari believed they were about to crush a young race. Instead, they were about to face humanity and everyone who had learned from humanity's fire. The stars burned with war. The Dravari fleet moved like a storm, darkening the void with thousands of warships. Their weapons glowed, their engines roared, and their commanders spoke with certainty. This time, the humans would not escape. This time, they would be broken. But waiting at the border of human space, the defenders stood ready. Humanity's fleet was smaller, weaker, yet their lines were steady. Battleships floated like steel mountains. Carriers hummed with power. Smaller ships darted into position like hunters preparing to strike. At the center of it all stood Jonathan Hale, no longer only a diplomat. He wore no armor, carried no weapon, yet every soldier, every pilot, every commander looked to him. His voice was the shield around them, his smile the fire that kept them unafraid. When the Dravari ships appeared, silence filled the human fleet. No one spoke. No one trembled. Every hand was steady, every eye fixed forward. Then Jonathan Hale gave the order. "Hold." The Dravari opened fire first. Blinding beams of light cut across the void. Explosions tore into human shields, shaking ships to their core. The galaxy expected humans to crumble, but the humans did not move. They held their line. They absorbed the storm. And then when the Dravari came close enough, Jonathan's voice rang out again. Now, the void lit up. Human weapons roared to life. Railguns spat fire, missiles streaked through the black, and hidden cannons erupted from asteroid fields. The Dravari's perfect formation broke apart under the sudden fury, and then came the surprise from behind the human lines. New ships emerged, small, fragile, not human, but allies. Yalathi fighters screamed into the fight, weaving between enemy. Ships, Varan bombers, dropped heavy charges, striking larger vessels. Even the weakest races had brought their strength, fighting not for conquest, but for freedom. The Dravari were shocked. This was not supposed to happen. Prey did not gather. Prey did not fight together. But they were no longer facing prey. The Battle raged for hours. Every explosion shook the void. Every scream of metal carried across the cums. Human ships fought with fury, turning losses into fuel for vengeance. Every destroyed vessel was answered with a counterstrike in one corner of the battlefield. Human carrier burned, its hull torn apart. Instead of retreating, it charged forward into the heart of the Dravari line, ramming into a battleship and detonating its reactor. The explosion ripped through the enemy formation, scattering ships like leaves in a storm. On the command deck, Jonathan Hale watched without blinking. His voice was calm when he spoke to his officers. "Remember this moment they thought we were weak. Show them what weakness truly is." The human fleet moved like no other. They did not fight with cold precision. They fought with fire, with rage, with unity. And for the first time, the Dravari faltered. Their ships began to pull back. Their lines broke. Fear spread through their crews. This was not a battle they understood. The humans should have run. Instead, they advanced. And then came the moment that silenced the galaxy. A massive Dravari dreadnought. The pride of their fleet turned its guns on Jonathan Hale's flagship. Beams of energy cut across space, slamming into shields, tearing through armor. The human ship shuddered, alarms screaming, fire racing along the hull. The Dravari commander laughed, certain of victory. But then, on the burning human bridge, Jonathan Hale stood tall. Smoke filled the air, sparks rained down. But he did not waver. He looked into the comms camera, sending his face across every human ship, every allied vessel, and every Dravari screen. And he smiled. That same smile, cold, unyielding. The smile that had begun this war. Human voices erupted across the fleet. They cheered, they roared, they fought harder. Every pilot pushed their ship beyond its limit. Every soldier struck with fury. Even the allied fleets, small and fragile, found new strength in that smile. The dreadnought never got the chance to fire again. Human ships swarmed it, missiles tearing through its armor, railguns shredding its weapons, until at last the giant broke apart in fire. The Dravari fleet collapsed. Some ships fled, some were destroyed, others simply drifted, their crews paralyzed. By disbelief, when the smoke cleared, the battlefield was scarred, littered with wreckage, fire, and silence. But the humans still stood, bloodied, broken, scarred but standing. Jonathan Hale's voice carried across the comms. They wanted to end us. Instead, they have awakened us. Let this be their lesson. Humanity does not fall. Humanity does not bow. Humanity stands. Message spread far beyond the battlefield. Across the galaxy, the oppressed whispered the words. The Union sat in uneasy silence. And in the Dravari homeworld, terror took root, because this was no longer a war of fleets. It was a fire spreading across the stars. The Dravari had tried to kill one man, but instead, they had made a symbol that could not be killed. And now, the galaxy would burn with the memory of his smile. The battlefield was silent now, but the galaxy was not. News of the human victory spread like wildfire. Across every world, every station, every council hall, the same words repeated. The Dravari lost. It was impossible. The hunters who had crushed countless species had been driven back. Their dreadnought destroyed, their fleets broken. And not only by humans, but by humans leading others. For the first time in living memory, strong had been made to bleed. In the Dravari homeworld, rage filled the council chamber. Commanders screamed at one another, their voices trembling. With fear they tried to hide. The leader struck the table with a claw so sharp it cut stone. "This is not possible," he hissed. "They're young, they're weak. They cannot do this." But they had done it, and worse. Other races had joined them. Weak races, forgotten races. Prey. The very idea of prey fighting alongside prey was madness, yet it had happened. Inside, the Dravari began to feel something they had never felt before. Doubt, meanwhile. On Earth, the people mourned their dead but stood tall. Monuments were built for the fallen, but instead of sorrow, The air was filled with pride. Every name carved into stone was not seen as a loss, it was seen as a reminder of what humans were willing to pay for freedom. Factories ran day and night. Shipyards doubled their speed. Colonies across the solar system sent everything they had. Humanity was not tired. Humanity was only beginning. Jonathan Hale walked the halls of the command center. Officers saluted, soldiers straightened, civilians bowed their heads as he passed. He spoke little, but his presence was enough. To the people, he was no longer just a diplomat. He was the flame of Earth. In a private chamber, generals gathered. Maps of Dravari space glowed across the walls, marked with fleets, strongholds, and colonies. A general spoke sharply. "We must strike now, before they recover. If we give them time, they will gather more fleets." Another answered. "If we push too far, the Union will turn against us. They already fear us. They will call us conquerors." The room grew heavy with silence. All eyes turned to Jonathan Hale. He stood with his hands behind his back, studying the map. His voice was calm when he finally spoke. "We did not choose this war, but now it is ours. The Dravari will never stop. If we hold, they will strike again. If we retreat, they will hunt us. The only path left." His eyes hardened. "Is forward," the generals nodded. The decision was made. Humanity would not wait for the next strike. Humanity would carry the war into Dravari space. Across the galaxy, Union worlds watched with unease. The old races whispered in their hidden chambers. Some argued that humans must be stopped before they grew too powerful. Others said nothing, remembering the battles, remembering the smile. But the younger races were not silent. The Yalathi sent more ships. The Varan tribes abandoned their hiding places and armed their fleets. And others, small and fragile, stepped out of the shadows to follow humanity's fire. One by one, the forgotten joined. The Dravari saw this with horror. Their enemies were multiplying. Every strike against humanity only pulled more species into the fight. Their leaders demanded answers. Why did they follow the humans? Why did they fight for them? The answer was simple, though the Dravari could not see it. The others followed because humanity did not fight only for itself. Humanity fought for the idea that no one should bow to hunters. The next battles came quickly. Human fleets crossed into Dravari territory, striking with fury. Supply depots burned. Outposts fell. Dravari ships were ambushed in their own space, forced to retreat again and again, but it was not without cost. Human ships were lost, soldiers fell, and every victory came with blood. Yet still they pressed on. Jonathan Hale's voice carried across the fleet after every battle, calm, steady, relentless. "Remember why we fight. Not for conquest, not for glory. We fight because they struck first. We fight because they believed we would bow. And we fight so no one else will have to bow again." The Union could no longer ignore it. Council halls filled with arguments. Some demanded sanctions on Earth. Others demanded support. And still, the image of Jonathan Hale's smile haunted every debate. In the shadows, old powers plotted. They feared that if humans were not stopped, the galaxy itself would change. But still they hesitated, because deep down, they feared something more than change. They feared humans might win. And in the Dravari homeworld, their leader whispered to himself in the darkness. His claws trembled, his eyes wide. "We should have killed him when we had the chance." Because the galaxy now belonged to fire, and humanity was carrying that fire. Deeper into the stars, the war had changed the stars. Dravari space, once feared and untouchable, now burned with battle scars. Human fleets moved deeper every week, leaving broken stations and shattered ships behind. Small races rose beside them, no longer hiding. The hunters were bleeding, and the galaxy was watching. But the Dravari were not finished. They were desperate. And desperation is dangerous. In the Dravari High Council, their leader spoke with cold fury. If we strike their colonies, they will crumble. If we break their homes, their fleets will fall apart. An admiral hesitated. "We have tried. They do not break. Then we strike harder." the leader hissed. Not fleets, not outposts. Their world, their Earth. Silence filled the chamber. Even the hunters knew what this meant. To strike Earth itself was to gamble everything. But desperation left them no choice. And so, the Dravari gathered their might. A fleet larger than anything they had ever sent before. Dreadnoughts, carriers, endless waves of warships. Their path was clear straight toward the blue planet that had defied them. On Earth, the alarms rose. Satellites screamed warnings. Stations reported the incoming swarm. Across every colony, the message spread. They are coming for Earth. Panic could have followed. Fear could have broken them. But instead, humanity answered with steel. Fleets turned from the front lines and raced home. Factories stopped everything and poured resources into defense. Civilians armed themselves, ready to fight even in the streets if needed, in the command center. Jonathan Hale stood at the center of it all. His face was calm, his eyes steady, but his smile, the same smile, was there. The smile that told every human who saw it that they would not fall. A general spoke quickly. Their numbers are greater, their weapons are stronger. Even with our allies, the odds. Jonathan raised a hand, silencing him. Odds are for those who fear the fight. We do not fear. Messages poured in from allies. The Elathi promised every ship they had. The Varan tribe swore to fight until the last. Others, weak and fragile, still sent what little they could. They did not come because they expected. To win, they came because humanity had shown them a choice. The Union could no longer remain silent. Their council chamber was chaos. Some demanded intervention to stop the Dravari. Others argued that humans themselves were the greater danger. If they survived, the balance of the galaxy would end. Finally, one voice rose above the noise. An elder race, silent until now, spoke. You speak of balance. But balance is already broken. The hunters struck first. The humans only answered, if we do nothing, we will prove ourselves cowards. If we stand with them, perhaps the galaxy will be reborn. The council froze. For the first time, the Union faced a choice it could not escape. On the edge of Earth's orbit, the sky filled with steel. Dravari warships appeared in endless waves, their weapons glowing, their engines burning bright. They had come to end humanity once and for all. The human fleet waited. Battleships lined the orbit. Carriers floated above the blue planet. Civilian ships had been refitted into makeshift war machines. Even stations had been armed with cannons. Earth itself had become a fortress. Jonathan Hale stood on the bridge of his flagship, his voice calm as it spread across the comms. They think they can end us here? They believe Earth will break. But they forget one truth. This is our home. We do not lose our home. The Dravari opened fire. The void erupted in light, in fire, in death. Human shields flared, ships shook, explosions tore through the black. The first line bent, nearly broken, till Jonathan's voice cut through the chaos. Stand, fight, endure. The battle for Earth began. Fleets clashed, fighters swarmed, missiles streaked like falling stars. Human ships fell, but each loss was answered with fury. Allied fleets joined the defense, smaller, weaker, yet striking with all they had. Still, the Dravari pressed forward. Their dreadnoughts cut through defenses, their cannons shattered ships. Their swarm pushed closer and closer to Earth. It seemed the hunters would finally break through, until a new signal appeared. The Union, from the dark. Fleets arrived. Massive. Ancient, powerful, they had chosen. And in that choice, the stars themselves seemed to shift. The Dravari, once hunters, now found themselves surrounded, humanity before them. Allies beside them, the Union behind them. The predators had become prey. On the burning flagship, Jonathan Hale's smile widened. He spoke, his words carrying across every channel, human, alien, friend, and foe alike. They thought an attack would end us. Instead, it united us. Today, Earth stands. Today, the galaxy stands. The Dravari fleet faltered. For the first time, Their hunters knew the taste of fear, and the war for Earth became the turning point of the stars. The battle for Earth shook the heavens. Dravari's ships burned in orbit, their broken hulls drifting like dying stars. Human battleships, battered and scarred, still stood in formation. Allied fleets circled the planet, fragile but unbroken. And from the far reaches of space, the Union had finally joined the fight. For the first time, the galaxy was united in one battle. The Dravari roared with fury. Their dreadnoughts unleashed firestorms, tearing through defenses, trying to break the human line. But every time they struck, humanity answered with steel and flame. Every loss only sharpened their will. On the bridge of his flagship, Jonathan Hale stood tall. Smoke filled the air, alarms screamed, but his voice was steady. "Hold your ground. I came for Earth. They will leave in ashes." The Dravari pressed harder. They threw everything they had, desperate to reach the blue planet below. But the human fleet would not bend. Allied ships, small and fragile, threw themselves into the fire. Even Union dreadnoughts, ancient and mighty, formed a shield around Earth. And still, Jonathan Hale smiled. His smile carried across every to every soldier, every pilot, every frightened child on Earth watching the sky burn. It was not the smile of a man certain of victory. It was the smile of someone who had already decided that no matter the cost, humanity would not fall. The Dravari leader watched the battle from his command vessel. His claws trembled as he saw his fleet scatter. For centuries, the Dravari had been the hunters, but now they were prey. He hissed to his crew, "End this. Kill the human." Dozens of Dravari ships turned their weapons on Jonathan Hale's flagship. Beams of fire cut across the void, slamming into the ship's shields. Armor shattered. Decks burned. For a moment it seemed the symbol of Earth would be destroyed, but then something happened the galaxy would never forget. Human ships, damaged and broken, moved to block the fire. One after another, they placed themselves between Jonathan's vessel and the enemy. Guns, carriers, escorts, even supply ships. They took the hits, shields collapsing, hulls splitting apart, crews giving their lives without hesitation. Not one ship allowed the flagship to fall. From the wreckage, Jonathan Hale's voice rang out, calm and clear. "They think killing me will end this. But they do not understand. I am only one man. Humanity is all of us. And humanity does not end." The word spread like fire, across the fleet, across the Union ships, across the Allied armadas. A roar rose, human and alien voices alike, carried by comes and battle cries. And then the counterattack began. Human battleships surged forward, railguns tearing through Dravari armor. Allied bombers swarmed the dreadnoughts, planting charges that split them open. Union fleets unleashed ancient weapons, beams of light so bright they cut through entire squadrons. The Dravari line broke. One by one, their ships fell. Some tried to flee, but the Union blocked their path. Others fought to the last, but humanity's fury consumed them. The hunters who had once stalked the galaxy were shattered. When the final Dravari dreadnought exploded in fire, silence spread across the stars. The battle was over. Earth still stood. Humanity still stood. For the first time in history, the galaxy had fought as one. On the flagship's bridge, battered but alive, Jonathan Hale looked at the ruined battlefield. His smile was faint now, tired, but it was still there. He turned to his officers, his voice quiet but strong. "Today we proved a truth the stars will never forget. Humanity is young, humanity is reckless, but humanity does not bow, not to hunters, not to empires, not to fear." The message carried far beyond Earth. Across the galaxy, the forgotten races lifted their heads. The Union, once divided, now looked upon humanity with awe. And in the ashes of the Dravari, a new order began to rise. Later, when the histories were written, they would not speak of numbers or weapons. They would not speak of the strength of fleets. They would speak of a single moment, a human standing in the heart of fire. Smiling as the stars shook around him, Jonathan Hale, Earth's first diplomat, had been the target of an assassin. But the attempt to kill him had given birth to something greater than any empire. It had given birth to a legend, the legend of humanity. And from that day forward, every race in the galaxy, old or young, friend or foe, would remember the same truth.